Hey, toy family! Welcome to the Marsham Toy Hour, where we talk everything designer toys. I'm Gary Ham.
I thought we were supposed to do this better this time.
I know, right?
Over 100%.
Everything. Come on, Gary.
Hey.
Do it again.
Hey, toy family! This is the Marsham Toy Hour.
No, you screwed up the name of the show.
Okay, for reals. Hey, toy family! Welcome to the Marsham Toy Hour, where we discuss anything and everything designer toys. I'm Gary Ham.
I'm Teresa Hawkins.
I'm George Gaspar.
Back from her strike, I'm Jessica Gaspar.
Hey, Jess.
Yay!
So let me just start off by saying this has been really hard to pull off because we're recording just after DesignerCon. We've been wanting to do a DesignerCon wrap-up, but as everyone knows, DesignerCon happens to fall on the weekend before Thanksgiving. So it's not easy to get 3 people on a call to talk for 2 hours. George, you had house guests. You had Dr. A and his family staying at your place. They left this morning, so we couldn't record last night. And today, Teresa's mom, dad, and brother arrived in town, and they're staying at her house. And guess where she's recording? It's 11 o'clock at night for her, and she's like holed up in her master bedroom closet to do this record with us.
Truth. So, they are in bed sleeping, and I'm here in my closet, and of course it's a room that's not insulated, so I'm literally sitting here covered in blankets for you all.
I appreciate the sacrifice. Because we realized by going to DesignerCon that if you and I were planning on just doing it ourselves last night, Teresa, but really, George is the star of the show. Like, we can't do this show without George. And Jess. It goes George, then Jess, then Teresa, and then myself. So we realized, like, we can't do this wrap-up without George. So Teresa's like, okay, I will figure out some sort of way to do this with my family in town. And so here we are. So thank you, Teresa, for making the sacrifice.
I'm trying. I don't know if I'd call George the star, but...
Oh, he's the most talked about. He's the most wanted.
I feel like I have more star quality than George.
You're the funniest. You're the funniest. You're a nice little...
I'll take that.
I think reading the comments on Facebook, no one even took a picture or met me. Everybody was meeting you and Teresa and Gary, and no one was like, oh, I met George. Like, no one even cared.
Well, I think that's just because Teresa and I are seen walking around together most of the time, and I think because of that, people have been starting to give us some nicknames. We've been hearing... What are some of the names we've been hearing, Teresa?
Therese Ham.
Therese Ham. Ham Hawk.
Ham Hawk. That's the best one. Ham Hawk.
It is. I vote for Ham Hawk if people are going to adopt something.
Therese Ham is horrible. Sorry, Jeremy. It's awful.
But no, at the end of the day, though, regardless of who's the star or whatever, Gary, I did, we were talking with George, and he was like, oh, I can't do it. But no, I was like, we can't do this without George.
We can't. There's no way.
My closet situation is worth
it. Can Ham Hawks be the name of the people that listen to the show?
No, we call them. We've decided. What's the name that we came up with, Teresa? Or you came up with?
Marshamites.
Marshamites.
Oh, Marshamites.
Marshamites.
It's kind of cute, right?
I don't know. I think I like Ham.
No, that's us. We can't name our listeners our name.
All right, guys. It's 11 o'clock for Teresa. I got to throw a 20-pound turkey in the oven in a few hours, so let's get this thing going.
How many people
DCon.
No, I don't have a 20-pound turkey. But we are cooking for family tomorrow, so I still need to research how to cook a turkey in the oven. So, all right. So let's talk about DesignerCon. All previous years, it's been held in Pasadena. It outgrew the space. This year, they decided to move it to Anaheim, Anaheim Convention Center, directly across the street from Disneyland. So if you go out there with a family, you can walk to Disneyland within probably 5 minutes. We all arrived in town on Thursday. We all stayed in Anaheim. What did you guys think? What was your first impressions of rolling into town and walking into the convention center for the first time?
I definitely like the town of Pasadena better than I like the town of Anaheim around Disneyland.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Pasadena has a way cooler vibe. It's just easier. There's better things to eat. There's just nicer. It's just a nicer area. Everything around Anaheim Convention Center is tourist trap, tchotchke garbage. But The convention center is way easier to get in and out of for load in, load out. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So it's not a boring story.
Thanks, it's fair enough, George.
But yeah, it was much nicer in that regard.
Yeah, and getting the badges was easy. And the one thing I'll say, I drove in so many hotels just within walking distance. So that's a nice change, that there's so many hotel options. They were actually affordable. I think most of the places ran between $140 to maybe $200 a night. Because you're at Disneyland, breakfast was included at most places, either buffet style or what have you. So yeah, that was nice that was included. And everywhere that I saw us staying and other people staying, you could walk to the convention center within 5 to 10 minutes, and then plenty of food options around. So we walked hotel to the convention center in a 5-minute walk. We easily obtained our badges, and then we actually opened the doors into the convention center, and holy shit, it was huge. Did you guys get that massive impression?
Yes.
100%. Yeah, when I first walked in that backloading dock area and saw all the booths, I was like, wow, this is a whole different convention now. This is a whole different ball game when you have that many booths in there. The intimate friend convention is a thing of the past. It's more of an actual convention now. Like, it used to feel like we were just hanging out, and yeah, we had booths, and yeah, we were selling stuff, but like it was more just like artists and friends gathering together to talk and hang out. But now it's like, oh no, this is a convention. We're at a convention center. We're at there's a million giant booths. There's big booths from big companies. There's little guys, and you're at a convention.
Yeah, totally agree.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I would never say the magic's gone, because all the vendors and all the artists and all your friends are still there. You're still able to obtain the toys that you want. It's just different. It's just so big. You walk in the doors, you're like, Jesus, this is going to take me forever to walk through. And there's just so many big booths and pavilions, and things are just on a much grander scale. So if you showed up there not wearing your best pair of walking shoes, you were screwed.
You used to be able to walk the show in an afternoon and feel like you could have seen it. There's no way you can walk this show in an afternoon. Like, it's full 2 days walking around, and you'll still miss stuff.
Yeah, I spent 3 days and I still missed stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the days, so my phone tracks my steps, and I think on one of the days it told me I walked over 10 miles and 20K steps, which is insane to me. I mean, you think one hall is enough, and then you cross through and realize there's a whole other one that's the exact same size to walk. I mean, it's huge.
I think that's because the aisles were extremely far apart this time.
So to give people an idea of how wide the aisles were, I think you could have parked 2 Hummers side by side in one aisle. Like, they were wide.
Well,
they were 20 feet. I don't know if they were too.
That's 2 Hummers side by side. Yeah, it was 20 feet between aisle. It was 20 feet between the booths in the aisle. So the aisle was 2 booths wide, basically. So it was no longer where if you're on a row with someone and you have your neighbor next to you, and then you have your neighbor across the way, where you're kind of being able to, like, you could throw a little something at them if you're friendly, and you can fool around. It wasn't that anymore. Like, you'd have to pitch it across the way. Like, it felt like they weren't even part of the same group.
Right? I think, I know at Pasadena, and especially some of the halls, like the Hall C and then the small front carpeted area, the aisle space was always an issue. And I remember walking through there would be people where backpacks would like smack someone's table display and knock stuff over, and people would be trying to scooch past, and it was nuts. So, like, totally understand trying to improve that. And they did make it a lot better, but I almost feel like they went too wide. Like, because like you said, the booths were so far apart, the ones facing each other. And when we were walking through it, I mean, when you're walking down the middle of the aisle and there's people on either side, you're kind of missing the booths, and it's kind of hard to be able to walk through an aisle and look both left and right at the same time.
Yep. Because
it was so spacious.
Yeah, you definitely, if you were going to walk an aisle, you had to walk down one side and up the other side of the same aisle.
Exactly.
Right. Or kind of ping pong back and forth. Yeah, because I really tried. Gary and I, like, we said, okay, we're going to start on one end and like work our way around at one point. And it was just like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? Because you'd think you could go down an aisle and hit both sides, but you really couldn't.
Yeah, I think, and because of that, I think a lot of the booths didn't get the up close and personal looks. I think a lot of people would just walk right down the middle, so there's 10 feet on either side of you, and you just look left and look right. And a lot of people weren't seeing the booths up close and personal and seeing the small stuff. And like what George said, because the aisles are so wide, you're really just walking the aisle twice or 3 or 4 times to see everything in that aisle.
Which makes that even bigger convention, which makes it a double-sized convention.
Yeah.
Right?
Instead of 20 aisles, you've now got 40 aisles to walk down.
Now, I will say because of the wider aisles, I think it was a little deceiving in the fact that it never felt... I was in there for 3 days, and I never stopped to think that it feels busy and crowded in here. And I think that was just a deception. I'm sure the attendance was just as good, if not better, than previous years.
Yeah. I definitely think the attendance was probably around the same. I don't know if it was much more, if it was more at all, but it wasn't less for sure. It felt like it was pretty even with last year. One way to tell that was the preview night where, there's only a certain amount of people from normal attendees in there, and it still felt like it didn't feel empty, but then the next day it definitely felt like there was more people in the hall.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I do think it's a perception thing, Gary, because I do, especially on Saturday, I mean, I definitely felt like, okay, like it's hopping, there's people around. But I think because the aisles were so wide, it didn't feel packed, which in a way is kind of nice, right? The whole goal of it was so that you weren't having to push and shove through people.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was nice to be able to, you can stand at a booth and talk to people on the other side, and no one felt like they were blocking the aisle.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
right.
you weren't in anyone's way. So there's pluses, good. It's good and bad, but they did feel extra wide.
I wouldn't mind them 2 feet shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other probably negative, the biggest negative I think was they didn't have any of the aisle markings, so there was nothing in the air or there was nothing on the ground to be able to tell what aisle was what. All you had to rely on was the tiny sign at the back of someone's booth if they happen to have kept it up, which most people don't.
Yeah.
So that was a little hard to find people. It was a little bit. It's one of the things that they really do for next year is to put aisle markers up.
I heard that complaint a lot, and I have to say, Teresa was in there for 3 days, and at no point did she ever know where she was. She was lost. She was lost at every single turn. If she said, "Gary, I'm going to go to Horrible Adorables," and she would start walking there, I'm like, "Teresa, it's behind us." Or she'd go, "Okay, it's time to leave," and she would start leaving towards the exit, and she'd start walking towards the back of the hall. Never did Teresa have any concept of direction in that building. Never.
Oh my gosh. So like, I will say, Gary, you can back me up. That like I can be good at directions. Like when we've been around in New York, you're all like, "Oh, I don't know," and I'm like, "This way, Gary." Like I do have a sense of direction, but for some reason in that building, because it all looked the same, and like the same lights, the same whatever, it's just like I kept getting turned around. And the thing you mentioned, George, about people taking their signs down, so many booths didn't have the numbers. So I couldn't look at a booth and be like, "Oh, where am I at?" I had to like figure out. I'd be pulling up the app on my phone or whipping out the map like a tourist, like unfolding it, trying to figure out where the heck I was. It was bad. I never once really felt like I understood the layout of that place.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think some kind of way to help people know where they're at. I mean, it got to a point where I was like, okay, this is the dinosaur room, like the Jurassic Park one, or this is the Metacom room. Like, what are the big things I can notice? But yeah,
it got a little like a Disneyland parking lot in there in the sense that you had your markers.
Yeah.
You knew you were in the Goofy zone or the dinosaur zone. That's how you knew where you were and how to get around and find your car or your booth or whatever. But for me, I know that Ben added an extra hall when he knew that Metacom was coming into the pavilions and he wanted to have more walking space, and I think that's great, but at the same time I feel like they could do the convention with remove one of the halls, and I think we could fit all in one hall. I think that would be better for next year. Just curate the booths a little bit better, shorten the aisles a little bit, maybe get rid of a few things, and I think we could fit in one hall and not necessarily need both halls.
Yeah, it's just the two halls, I'm kind of with you, Gary. I don't know. I don't know if the two halls is necessary or not. And I think the other hard part was, as you mentioned, George, like I know a lot of vendors who are wanting to pop over and say hi to other vendors, but like one might be working at 101 and you're all the way over at 2424. I mean, it's crazy to try to span that distance and find people and hang out, especially as a vendor. I mean, I know it was a struggle for me trying to bounce between booths. So
it was hard. I wanted to get a pin from Patrick Ballesteros, and he was the farthest it could ever be from where I was. Like, he was like the opposite wall, almost the very end, and I was just like, finally made it over there on Sunday. I just ran over real quick to get it, but it was tough. Like, I didn't really get to walk around as much as I would have liked, because halfway through I was trying to walk and just was like, I can't. There's too much, so I just gave up.
And to describe it for anyone who wasn't there, I mean, DesignerCon started out as VTN, Vinyl Toy Network. So you would go there and you would know that you're only going to be seeing designer toys or vinyl toys or whatever. But now it's DesignerCon, and so it's just an artist-driven, anyone who kind of designs their own stuff or independent dealers. There's just so many styles and so many things being represented there now, from plushes and t-shirts and pins and shirts and art prints. It's all a mixed bag. And that if you walk down any aisle, it's a sprinkling of a little of everything. And because of that, if the event's going to be this big again next year, I almost feel like I would like to see the block section that we saw at San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con, to where I would know and could hang out primarily in the designer toy section versus having to ping-pong across this ginormous hall again.
Wouldn't that be boring, though? Do you really just want to go, like, because then, like, if you're not into prints right at that second, you're like, oh, I'm not going to even go in that whole area, and you might miss something cool.
See, that's where I struggle, because part of me likes the block idea because it would make my life easier. Like, okay, I just go here and I could do all my own shopping. But I can also see why it was mixed, because the whole goal is to, people come in for one type of thing, but they might peruse the other stuff. And so I worry a bit, if it's not mixed the way it was, will people, like George said, will people actually go out and explore the other areas, or are they going to go to the one that they know they want to hit up? I don't know. I struggle a lot with which is the right way to go about it. Because I do have to say, the way it was mixed, I mean, it was tricky, because like I had a list of at least booths I was interested in, and trying to find them almost kind of felt like a needle in a haystack. Like going down an aisle, trying to figure out what aisle it is. Is it on the left or the right? Okay, I'm seeing like shirts here and pins here, and oh, okay, there it is, like buried between those booths. But by me going out there and finding my booths, I'm perusing all the others in the process. So it's hard.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard talking about in this podcast, too, because I think we come across sounding like it's a negative event, and I don't want that to be the case. We're just giving our honest, constructive criticism of it. A lot of people, when they go on social media, they don't want to say how they truly felt about the event. They want to be, oh, yeah, it was amazing. It was the best thing ever. I'm going to be there again next year. And that's not what our job is to do. Our job is to talk about how we saw it and how it was for the other vendors that we talked to. And honestly, a lot of vendors we talked to, and we talked to a lot, it was not a great convention for them. Yeah, there's a lot of them that did say it was very good for them. It was the best event yet. And I think a lot of those booths tend to be more towards the front, benefited from that great real estate placement. But there are also people that were in the back. Paul Kaiju, Sour Lemon, Mutant Vinyl Hardcore. There's some booths you can just put them anywhere and they're going to do well. So, but majority of the booths we talked to did mention sales were not as good. As good this year as previous years. Sales were down. They were down on the size and the scale and the number of vendors. So some of them actually very established and popular booths are questioning, are they going to be there next year? So it's not a perfect event by any means. There are definitely some growing pains going into this event. And I still feel like next year, if they wanted to, with a little curation of the booths, they could probably get it down to a single hall again. There was a lot of dead space. The Jurassic Park area, the panel section, that whole far side was a lot of wasted space. And then I think because they opened up the hall, that opened up the floodgates to the waiting list. And I think on the waiting list, there's a lot of vendors that really were not designer con material, in my opinion. A lot of them looked like something that I would see at a comic convention, selling like old mainstream toys. And there was a few booths I saw only selling pops, and just some weird kind of strange booth that just did not fit the vibe of a designer con. So I do feel like if they wanted to, they can just curate it and get it down to a single hall. and we wouldn't need that block situation at all. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I kind of agree. I mean, it did seem like there was stuff there that didn't fully belong. And I agree with the dead space, especially on the side with the Jurassic Park. And that was the same side as Funko, right? The Saturday mornings booth, Gary.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like that whole side, and it's hard to explain for people that were there, but it did feel like that they kind of spread them more than they really need to, and there was a lot of extra space. And I especially felt bad for these booths that were tucked in weird spots. Like Thousand Toys, I felt bad. They were kind of in a weird little spot. There were some booths along the edge of the building over there, just felt randomly placed. So there were a few spots where they didn't feel like they were in the heart of the building, and I felt bad for them because of that placement. I mean, it did seem like there was a lot of unnecessary space because of the.
Yeah, there was some definite prime real estate in that building, and then there was the case where there was some just horrible placement for some people. I felt bad for some people. The one that you're actually talking about, the two booths that were kind of just free floating off in the.
They were basically next to the panels in the dead zone.
Next to the panel.
Right.
Alex Solis was sitting over there. And honestly, I'm sorry, Alex, I didn't stop by to see your booth because you were like another 30, 40 feet away from the last booth that I stopped at, which was 1,000 Toys. And I would just kind of look at your booth from 40 feet away and be like, fuck, my feet hurt. I'm not going to walk all the way there. So you and I forget who the other booth was. I couldn't really make it out, but I didn't make it all the way over there. You had an absolute shit spot. And if you're listening to this, hopefully they can rectify that for you if you decide to go next year.
Those two booths that were floating at that end there, that just needs to be, like, that part of the building needs to be cut off. Like, just, I don't know why the shape, like, why is the building shaped the way it is over there? But, like, it was the worst corner. Like, where the panels were, I get you don't have a panel room, so you kind of make it into this little section of the hall. But, like, that whole area was
weird.
A crap fest.
It was
the worst.
And that's why it worked for Funko, because, you know, that fan base is just going to go directly to that booth. It didn't matter where you put the Saturday mornings booth. They were going to go there. So they were actually tucked away in this weird corner, or it would have been a weird corner for anybody else, but it worked for Saturday mornings. But for all the other booths, that area just didn't work. It was a very strange area to walk in.
Nothing, because there was no row over there. It wasn't like you could walk an aisle and get to them. They were just on their little, like, section off into the side, and it was like, especially those last two in the corner. I was up on a panel. I was a moderator on a panel, and I'm looking over these two booths by themselves, like, everyone. And I'm just thinking, what is going on over there? Like, no one can talk to them. Like, it's too far.
Yeah, I felt so bad. And then behind the 1,000 Toys booth was this, like, really weird skinnified enamel pin kind of section. Like, all of a sudden you see this weird cluster of booths with, like, no aisle space. I don't know what was going on with that area.
How did they do that? Like, how did they set up in the aisles? Like, where did their aisles go?
Yeah, I don't know. It was I honestly didn't really peruse that very much because I was just so confused. Like, I went over to 1,000 Toys because Don was there, and, you know, I knew other people. It's like, just like we're talking about, there's certain booths you just go visit. It doesn't matter where they're at. But that whole area behind them was just weird. It was these weird tables with chairs and weird skinny aisles. I was like, I don't know what this is.
It was the VR section. They had, like, the Tower of Disney Pins booth over there. And then
the thing about that enamel market section was, like, it was all these little tiny enamel market booths, like, cramped together with no aisles. But then all around them was empty. Like, why didn't they just spread out a little bit?
It was very strange.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, just thinking through whether it's two halls or one hall or whatever, but just trying to create, you know, consistent aisles and stuff for everyone versus these weird pockets. Because it was just, you'd be in, and then even in some of the aisles, right, you'd be down an aisle and then there'd be kind of a weird break for, like, a larger booth or a pavilion, and you kind of lose your way. It's like the aisle would stop.
Yeah, those big booths that broke up aisles was a mess. Because then now you have to go around this booth into a different place to try and find your way back to the aisle that you were in, and go back into the. Like, you couldn't walk an aisle with a booth in the middle of it. Like, why would they do that? I don't know.
Yeah,
that was weird.
It was tricky because, I mean, and you could tell, like, I don't know, the way I walked the floor, any of those booths, there were like a handful that were like in front of those weird breaks. And frankly, I missed them. Like, because you just kind of say, oh, there's a blockade. I'll come back, right? Like, I'll move back around in the next aisle and move around. And you kind of miss those weird pockets. Not as bad as the whole Jurassic Park random booths by the panels, but there were some weird breaks. So I don't know if there's a way.
Like around the Medicom booth, especially.
Yeah.
It was just like, they were just a big blockade in the middle of the aisle. It was like, why is this booth here?
Yeah, they almost, and maybe that's what it is. Like maybe the big pavilion-y stuff needs to kind of be either along a wall or like an area, like all together versus spread out and breaking stuff up. It's almost like, could they create the Medicom and Pop Life,
that back corner in that big empty spot, and make, because they need the booth space, they need the space for their lines, they need the room. Put them in that back corner.
I agree. Put Pop Life, Medicom, and Funko all on that back wall.
And all those weird cars too.
There was for anyone who wasn't there was a car show. I counted a total of 8 cars at that show.
Only 8?
So there's a tour bus and 2 like lowrider cars at the Pop Life booth. At the Jurassic booth, there was the Jeep and another Jurassic car there. And then there was a Pizza Planet truck. Then at the DCon booth, there was like a little red car. I have no idea why that was in his booth. And then there was another car at I can't even think of the name of the booth, but it was kind of
at the Hundreds booth. And don't forget the Ecto 1 was out back by the Enamel Market too.
Oh, that's right. So 9.
They were everywhere. And I don't know, I don't personally get it. It felt very weird. I mean, some of it, like the Jurassic Park and the stuff at Pop Life, maybe like the tour bus and the Pizza Planet kind of get, but some of it was just like, oh, here's like a random car just sitting in the middle of the hall. Like, I don't know. Maybe other people enjoyed it. Maybe it's just me because I don't do cars. But I was like, I don't get it. Why is this here?
Hey, they were nice cars, beautiful cars. I like a nice car show, but I wasn't expecting to see so many at DesignerCon. But that aside, let's move on to talking about the Saturday mornings booth. This was an area of a concern for a lot of people in our community. They were not expecting or wanting to have a Funko presence at this convention, but having gone to the convention and seen it, Funko was had their own little corner. It was a very nice looking booth, very well managed, had lots of stuff going on. The lines and their collector base was not an issue. I saw tons of Funko bags walking around the entire convention, making purchases at other booths. So I think overall, I don't think there was any negative effect on the convention at all. If anything, I think it had a very positive effect on the convention because I saw so many buying and spending money in other areas of the convention. So what did you guys think? What did you think about their presence at the convention?
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw plenty of people walking around with Funko bags. I think they were still wandering the floor looking for other stuff, and I can't recall anybody with a Funko bag really buying stuff from my booth, but that doesn't mean no one bought anything from my booth, so it's fine.
Oh,
George.
Yeah, they did. They just bought your old stuff.
Yeah.
I was selling it, and you weren't there.
You just got to have Jess around. But no.
Did sales spike when you weren't there, George, when Jess was manning it?
Yeah,
Yes.
because when I'm there, I'll give it away, and when she's there, she sells it.
Oh, man. But yeah, no, I agree, Gary. I mean, I think there was this whole, I know in the scene there was this whole concern with it of what it would mean. And I don't know. Yeah, I agree. It didn't really seem to affect anything. It's a little different for us. I wasn't, being pressed. We didn't have to wait in the VIP lines or anything like that. So I'm sure the VIP lines, I heard they were quite long, especially for the first day. Apparently they had them winding through some basement area. So I'm sure the length of that line was probably affected by fanatics wanting to get in line and buy stuff from them. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it didn't seem to be an issue. And I agree. I saw tons of bags walking around. So it seems like they were checking out the rest of the show. And I do feel like I have to mention something. So should we talk about the cereal, Gary?
Oh, you're going to do a retraction. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So, George, as you know, I've voiced some distaste for this cereal, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, basically the Funko booth actually had 2 lines. One was used for purchases. You could just go. There was the cereal bowl you could take a photo in, and you could purchase stuff. I actually never waited in that line, so I never got a photo with their big cereal bowl. But then they had another line, and sometimes they'd use it for like poster signings or select things they had going on at the booth. But any other time, you could use it to just go and try the cereal for free. And so we're like, let's just go over there and let's just try it. The line's not too long. Let's just check it out. And I'm like thinking, oh God, like, here we go. But I'm like, you know what? Fine. Let's try it again. Right. Why not? Right. We get in line, you go up, and the cereal they have to try is a blue one. But this time, so I got a bowl, and they had silk milk. So I was able to use non-cow's milk. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do the real thing. I'll pour a bowl of cereal, add some milk. Let's see how this goes. And I was very surprised, but I actually liked it. It was good.
The missing ingredient was milk.
What did you get your cereal with before?
No, because, I didn't have milk, but I do think the blue cereal is different because on the red one, there was a certain flavor and a really bad aftertaste. And I didn't sense that at all with the blue one. So it must be a different flavor or something.
What was cool about the taste testing too, George, for the main VIP attendees, like first 1,000 a day or whatever, you get the yellow Vincent Designer Con exclusive little mini cereal box. But if you go to the actual taste testing at the Saturday mornings booth, then you also get another exclusive Designer Con box, which is the Freddy Funkos in the blue box. And it's a real cool vintage style of Freddy, like in a little drummer boy outfit with animals marching behind him with spoons. And I like this box a lot. I picked this box up, and I really like the design in this box.
And what's in the box?
Cereal.
Is there a prize in it?
There was a prize.
What was it?
It's just a sticker.
Which is box? What box were they giving away that had the pin in it?
The DCon.
The little yellow box with Vinny on the cover playing the guitar. That was the one that we're giving away.
Okay.
So the Saturday morning booth didn't seem to be an issue for people. I heard a lot more positive things on it. Really didn't hear much mention of it all, but I didn't hear any negativity on it being there. The only thing that I heard negativity on was some of just mainly the curation of the booths. I already mentioned it. There's a lot of booths there that seem more Comic-Con type style, selling more mainstream type booths. There were some booths selling Pops, FYE was, a couple others, and some were only selling Pop figures. Others were selling just older mainstream toys, Transformers, and old stuffs too. So that was a little shocking to see. But there was one booth that surprised me probably the most of all, and they had Pops at their booth, and I did not expect them to. Yes, the 3D Retro Bill. They had Pops at their booth, and after that video and everything, I did not see that one coming.
Yeah. I didn't either. I remember I walked past that, and I was like, wait, what?
Does it every
After
year.
all of this. Huh?
He does it every year.
Does he?
Yeah.
I never noticed it before.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. Crazy.
And here's the thing. Like, Pops being at the show really doesn't bother me. It's more just funny to me that, when we talked to Ben on our episode, he just seemed so no Pops, no Pops, no Pops. So you would just think that because of that, anything related to that would just be a no. So it's just funny to see, especially the like full on, booth, floored it top to bottom, pop crazy. And
he tells everybody no Pops at the show, and then he brings it, and he's the only guy with Pops at the show.
But I also
he's a savvy businessman, that
I
Ben.
also think he secretly really likes Pop.
Oh, it's not a secret. He loves Pops.
Like, I know, but it's going to be like one of those things like, oh, I had to keep face, so I'm going to talk shit on it. But he, like, is buying, like, as he's on eBay buying them. Like, you know what I mean?
Come out of the closet, Ben. Come on out.
He's got many Pops in his collection.
It's not a bad thing. It's whatever.
I'll say another positive for the show. Another positive was the app. Other than the lack of search function, the app was great for the most part. I mean, you can scroll and find the booth you're looking for, and it brings it up on the map on a star so you can find it. Like, that was pretty cool. It needs a search feature, but other than that, you could star a booth and it saves it to a favorite. And you can pull up your favorites and it shows you on the map where they all are. Like, it was a really cool app.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people using the app. I never chose to download it because I was trying to save battery life on my phone, but I just used that fold-out one that they gave you when you picked up your badges.
The problem with that one was the words on the back were so tiny, you need a magnifying glass to read it.
Yeah.
It was,
I take the ads off the back of the map and just make the words a little bigger. Something.
Yeah, I preferred the app as well. I actually referred to it a few times. I'm with you, George. The lack of search was hard because it was just like an ABC list. So it was kind of hard sometimes. And I did struggle a few times to figure out what the name of the booth was for a person I was trying to find.
Yeah, it'd be good if they kind of just update it for next year and just add a function, things like that. Like it was overall though a decent app for like I didn't even know it was coming, and
right.
It's kind of announced the day before, like don't forget to download the app, and it was like well, there's an app, so I don't know. Maybe they can keep working on it over the year and get it better by next year. It'd be really nice.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was like a happy surprise. It came out of nowhere, and I was like, "Oh, there's an app!" And oh, yay, they did it for both Apple and Android. Sweet, and it's free. I'm gonna check it out. So yeah, I think it was great. It was a nice resource. The only other thing I'd say is some of the links were just web pages, and for me, that was a struggle sometimes with my signal. So it'd be nice if everything was just embedded in the app, if possible. But the main thing I was going to use was the vendor list anyway. So I liked the app. I hope they expand it and make it better for next year. So,
what else was a positive for the show? I mean, one thing was all the unexpected things that we saw at the event. Like you pay attention to Instagram feeds and toy blogs, and you think that you know everything that's going to be there. But then the day of, we're walking around, and all of a sudden we find out Mab Graves has a Dino Kitty, only 20 available, and they were a good size, and she's one of my favorite artists. So I geeked out over that. Chris Reiniak, did you manage that, George?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, you did?
Beast Brothers sculpted it. It looked great, George. I love that one.
Yeah, Beast Brothers did all the sculpting part of it, and then I just did the project management in China.
Okay, nice job.
That was flown in fast for the show. That was one of the fastest projects I've ever seen get made in my life. Like, we sent that to China in the last 2 months.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That is fast. But they look fantastic for that fast. I didn't see any issues with it. And from what I saw, the 20 sold out. There's lines for it and gone within the first few minutes. But I will definitely be picking this up when it goes to the mass market. I want one bad.
Yeah, that actually came out really nice in the end, like especially for how quick it got there.
So another thing that we saw walking around, Chris Ryaniak's Algonac, his little turtle character that's been being released in Sofubi through Scribbles Inc. We walked by Scribbles Inc. and sure enough, there's was it a 6-inch version of Algonac, Teresa?
I have no idea, but it was huge.
But you stopped, you squeed, and you purchased. Oh
my gosh. Well, so leading up to the whole event, I remember talking to you all, and I was like, I don't know. I feel different this year. I don't know why. Because everyone's like, are you ready? Do you have your list? Like, do you know what you're going to do? And I'm like, I don't feel like I need to run in there and buy anything. Like, I don't feel like I have to get anything. Like, if I were to go in and not buy anything at all, I feel like I'd be okay, which is so weird to hear me say and so weird for me to feel that way. Because I'm usually I got to have it all. So I'd been talking about, whatever. And we walked in the very first booth on the left is Scribbles Inc. And I saw that Algonac in his little display, and I went, oh my God, I didn't know that was going to be here. And just like that, I went from I don't need to buy anything to oh my God, I got to buy. So yeah, that was my first purchase of the show, and I don't regret it one bit. It's fantastic. So it's always funny. And you talk about social media and all that, I try really hard to stay up to date, but with the way feeds are now and the fact that it's not chronological and I'm busy traveling and getting ready to get to the show and all that kind of stuff, I felt really out of the loop. So I feel like there was that Algonac apparently was promoted really close to the event. I just totally missed it. So lots of surprises, I think, for me just because of that. I kind of pocket my phone once I come in town, which is hard because things like signings and different events happening or hey, come shout this word at our booth and get a free pin or whatever. So many people post that stuff at the show, but I'm just the kind of person who misses it because I'm kind of there, right? I'm in the event, I'm walking around, I'm talking to people. So it can be hard for me to follow that stuff leading up to the show and during it. But then it's fun when you walk around and see all the surprises. So
yeah. No, I'm the same way when I'm at the convention. I'm very rarely checking my phone. I'm just checking it for missed text messages and phone calls, but I'm not on social media. I'm doing that sort of stuff at breakfast or just before I go to bed. But to mention some of the other things that we saw there that were nice surprises, and it did seem like most of the stuff were upscaled versions of pre-existing toys. So we already mentioned Chris Reinek's Algonac was scaled up at Scribbles Inc., Mab Graves' Dino Kitty, although not a mass production toy, it is being released, going to be released in a large-scale vinyl toy soon. Then we stopped by Andrew Bell's booth, and it was great to see him there because we heard that him and Becky were kind of caught up in that winter storm that was going on back east. So I thought he might not make it, but they made it in time. And with him, he brought a king-size Kill Cat, and this thing was sweet. If I had the money, I would have easily dropped it on it because I imagine it's going to cost a pretty penny to ship as well. But it was basically the same version of his Kill Cat, but giant size, jumbo size. It was probably 20 to 24 inches tall, I feel like. It was probably 3-4 times the size of his original Kill Cats, and they were sweet. So it debuted at an event, and anyone who picked it up, I'm jealous because you're going to save on that shipping. It's going to cost a pretty penny to ship at a later date. So that was cool. And another one, we stopped by the Dahlia Oblong booth, and we saw her Baldwin character is going to be upscaled in Sofubi this time, and that figure looked awesome, and it was probably about 6 to 8 inches in size as well. And it was not available for immediate purchase, but she was taking pre-orders, and anyone who pre-ordered it at her booth would get free shipping at the later date. So that was kind of cool to see. But one of the most surprising things to see at the entire event, and one of the best things to see at the entire event, was we stopped by the DC Collectibles booth, and we had no idea this was going to be there, but there were some sweet, sweet Batman figures designed by James Groman. And so he did his version of Batman, Joker, Killer Croc, and Two-Face. And these things were huge. I want to say probably 8 inches in size, but super detailed, super creative versions of Batman characters that really only James Groman can come up with. And we love you, James, and they were incredible. Good job.
Yeah.
Those were just amazing pieces. And I think DC is doing everything right with that line.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Just working with the artists to do their style of character, like, of a licensed character, and like it doesn't look like restricting them at all.
Yep. And I talked to James about it. He actually hand sculpted all of those themselves. Like when we were talking to him and he was talking about how he had to farm out some stuff, his own personal stuff, to some sculptors, that's because he was working on this project for DC. So he actually sculpted those pieces.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Can we
Yeah.
talk
And
about the biggest fail at the show?
so what do you think is the big fail, George?
The largest fail of the entire show, in my opinion, is the fact that I went to the Kid Robot booth on Sunday, and the DesignerCon Dunny series was not there, was not for sale there, was not on display at the booth at all at DesignerCon on Sunday. And from what I heard, by Saturday afternoon was not at the booth for sale.
What?
At the signing for that series, they were not available for sale. So Kid Robot apparently didn't bring enough, didn't care enough to bring enough, or maybe just that many sold by Saturday morning. I don't know. But, dude, you don't have enough DesignerCon Dunny at DesignerCon?
Absolute fail.
They were telling people, you can go buy it online.
No, you shouldn't have to do that. You're there in person, ready to buy it. You should be able to buy one for the signing.
That's the point of it. It's the ticket to the booths to have all the artists sign their thing. You don't buy it online after the show.
No.
It's supposed to be available at DesignerCon.
Yeah, you would think so. And how many did they actually sell? If they told me they sold several hundred cases, okay, then good job. You probably weren't expecting that. But if you only brought 20 to 30 cases and those sold out by Saturday morning, then that's a fail. I feel like Kid Robot shows up to these stateside conventions with only marketing promotion on their mind and just treating it like a licensing expo with like sales is barely on their mind. I feel like they just show up with bare minimum stock. If it sells out at the show, they can go, oh, we sold out of everything, we're awesome. But in reality, I'm thinking that they're probably just too cheap to potentially send things back.
Well, guess what? It's the DesignerCon Dunny. It better be at DesignerCon. I don't care if you have to bring some back. Man up. It's the DesignerCon Dunny, for fuck's sake. Like, that's the whole point of the series, is to sell it at DesignerCon. And then they're walking around telling people just to go buy it online? That's retarded.
Yeah, and that's absolute BS.
No.
And hopefully the people that were told to go get them online were given promo codes for free shipping or something. They were there. But George, did you ever get to see them now that they were sold out? Have you ever seen any in hand?
I have not held a single DesignerCon Dunny yet. I went to try and look at them at the booth, and there were none on display. They did not have them at the booth. The DesignerCon Dunny at DesignerCon was not available to be seen by me on Sunday.
Wow. I thought they would at least have a full set displayed in a display case somewhere for you to at least see.
They should have had one of every one of them made on display at DesignerCon, and then a little number next to each one where all the artist booths were. How about promoting the artists in the artist series of DesignerCon at DesignerCon?
Yeah, that's a huge fail.
That's so stupid. The next thing that happened there, we went to the signing for Scott's daughters had their My Little Pizza came out. It was the grand release and their first signing ever on Sunday at 1:00. So we were like, all right, we're not going to buy it online ahead of time because that would be dumb. We want to buy it at the signing. We want them to sign the packaging. Mm-hmm. We go to the Kid Robot booth, 1:00. The girls are sitting there at an empty table with nothing to sell, nothing to sign, and nothing to buy. They didn't have any because they had already sold out of them because they didn't bring enough for the signing, and they didn't think to hold any back for the signing for the girls' first ever signing. These little girls are little tiny girls. You can't do that to them. They're sitting at an empty table.
Yeah,
that's heartbreaking.
Like they were scrapping things like oh, will you sign the bag? And we had to buy the ones that were on display with it was their personal copies that they had. We bought off them so that they could sign it.
Aww,
it was
that
ridiculous.
Sucks.
Here's the third one. Guess what? You guys see any news that Dr. A's new Mectorian miniseries came out?
Yeah, I saw that.
So the new just released at DesignerCon. You know who else has a booth at DesignerCon? Dr. A. You know what they didn't have a single open one at their booth on display of? Dr. A's Mectorians. You know what they didn't do? A signing with Dr. A for the Mectorians at the Kid Robot booth? Nothing.
And he's from the UK. Like he's on hand to do it. Makes sense to do it with him.
They had a case. Yeah, he flew himself in. Use him. He's right there. They didn't even have them on display. They weren't even open to look at.
You're bumming me out, George.
Dude, that's
I like it.
the biggest fails. Like
Kid Robot sucks.
I get it. They're busy. They got a lot of things to do. But all their stuff that was on display was old garbage that they've already been selling for years. They did a panel about the Arcane Divination 2. It doesn't come out for months. Why not do a panel of the DCon Dunny guys that are all there selling their Dunny? Why not bring some of those?
Because Arcane Divinations is one of their more popular series, probably.
Hey, you know what helps make a popular series? Support the artists that are in it.
I totally feel your rage because you would think Kid Robot of all companies would understand DesignerCon and what it is and how to use it.
Any other year, a series of that art of that caliber coming out at DesignerCon, that would have been the biggest thing at the show any other year.
Right.
And now they didn't even bring any.
Yeah, that's terrible. That sounds like a big old cluster.
As a dad, it pisses me off that they didn't have anything for the girls being there. Had I known, I would have brought my sketchbook over just so they had something to do. That's such BS. Your kids are,
The lady even told me, she was like, we brought very, very little amount of that.
See, that's just BS. Those toys are not that big. They could have brought more than enough to have or hold back stock for the signing. It kills me as a dad to hear that someone's daughters or kids sat there with nothing to do. This is something they've been working on for a couple of years. A very cool, fun project they worked on with their dad. It's the debut event. They're looking forward to showing up. And for them to have nothing to do, that kills me. That is just heart-wrenching. It sucks.
Yeah. I was really what's happening here? Why are they not? It was really confusing. I asked Frank about the Dunnies, and he seemed like he was happy with the sales. He was glad they sold what they sold. I think that he was, more than happy with it. I was confused, but he seemed like it was what they wanted to do. So
it's just,
I don't know.
I don't know. It just sounds bad, all around bad.
I'm so annoyed right now. I'm serious. My blood is boiling.
there was one guy I heard talking about the Vincent, how he was upset too that there was no gunny for sale on Sunday because he was hoping to buy some. And then I guess he had found out about the one because there was an alternate colorway of the Vincent that came out apparently. That was a China release at a China convention.
Oh.
And he was like, why on earth would you bring a Vincent, the mascot of the designer con, to China where no one knows what Vincent is? No one cares what this thing is. He's like, why is it there? He's like, why? I don't understand. Like now, I can't get this alternate colorway that was released in China, but all these people who have no idea what Vincent is can? Like, what is this? So he was pretty upset about it.
You mentioned it, and I'm like, yeah, I know what that is, thinking it's a chase option in the series. I had no idea that was an alt colorway for China. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how stuff. I don't know why the decisions are made the way they are sometimes.
Yeah.
They should know better.
No, they should. They're one of the biggest companies in designer toys. At least, here in the stateside they are, and definitely one of the longest running ones. So yeah, they should know better. But hey, as long as we're mentioning disappointments or failures of the show, I have some. These are actually things I mentioned on previous episodes that I was very excited about. One of them was How to Work. I thought they were going to have a booth at the exhibit, and it turns out they didn't. I know at one point they were on the exhibitor list, but never heard anything about them canceling. I know at one point they were on the exhibitor list, and then they just weren't. So that was disappointing. Another one was, I mentioned I was very excited about Knopfern coming over from Australia. It's an artistic duo that do the Pecan Pals. I absolutely love. I was looking forward to meeting them, but I swung by their booth 3 or 4 times, and they were never there. I could see it was a nice booth setup. It was a triple wide booth setup, but every time I swung by, they weren't there, and there was nothing to buy. It was just an empty 8-foot table in the middle of this kind of really large 3-booth setup. So disappointing I didn't get to meet them, but Teresa did get a picture of me sitting behind their table with a sad face. So bummer. And I guess the last one would be Tokidoki. They had just kind of a rinky-dink small presence at the show, just like a standard 10x10 booth. And, they have flagship stores in malls and, hotels and stuff. They usually show up to conventions with a very large presence. So for them not to have one at Designer Con was sort of disappointing. But this whole rant is disappointing. So how about we turn this around? What was good? Teresa?
Let's turn around because, I think we could. I got one I can mention, Gary, because we're talking about, things not to do right. But if we flip it on its head and we talk about maybe a way to do presentation and setup right, I do think a good example is, looking around, there was a lot of custom shows. And one that stood out for me was the Shard 2 show at the kind of the Scott Tolleson / a little bit Broke Piggy booth. But I thought they did a really good job of the setup of that show, of making it, they kind of did those pillars where you could walk 360 around the cube. So you could really look at all of the pieces from different angles, and they were almost up to eyeball height. So you could pretty much stand and look. But then the thing that I thought was really special was they kind of customized the pillars. So the top of these, so think of just like opaque pillars, and on top of them a clear cube. But on top of those clear cubes, they did this really cool shard cutout thing. So each of the cubes looked like broken glass shards. And I don't know, like from away as you're walking in, the backdrop and the pillars and all of that, like it brought me in. Like I wanted to go look at the show and walk around and see what it was. And even some of their display cases that had kind of like the icy shards and everything. Just overall, I thought they did a really good job with the presentation of that show.
Absolutely agree. It looked great. It was a double wide space, so plenty of room to walk around and see everything. All the customizers brought their A games. I saw lots of red dots. Yeah, great job by Broke Piggy and Scott Tolleson. It was a great presentation. When we were walking around, I saw Scott at the Broke Piggy booth, and by the time we got through looking at the show, he was gone. So I actually never saw Scott during the event. I should have circled back and saw him, but no, so that was a great event. The Jurassic Park show, no, the Shard show was the kind of the show stealer. Like the Jurassic Park art exhibition didn't look half as good as the Shard exhibit. The giant T-Rex was cool. That was a nice photo op thing. But as far as the art exhibition, it was missing something. It fell flat a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you guys even look at that exhibition?
I went over to look at it, and it was because I wanted to see. I guess Chris and Amanda had a piece in it, so I went over to find it and look at it, but I couldn't find theirs. And it turns out that it was all for sale, so you could buy it and leave with it. So I never even got to see Chris and Amanda's piece.
I was looking for their pieces specifically too, George, and I was able to find them and look at them. But the weird thing was they were put on a weird little display right by the giant T-Rex, kind of hidden in the bushes. Like, it was so weird. Like, there was this fake foliage by that giant dinosaur. And there was this kind of little table with them sitting right next to it. I almost missed them. And then everything else was kind of these weird, they were kind of on these pillars, but they were so spaced out that like you kind of just see the dino and the cars and kind of forget to like walk up and look at the pieces on these pillars. At least for me, it was like that.
Yeah. I agree.
So other, custom shows, there was the Sad Salesman Wizard show at the Sad Salesman booth. There was the Luna show at the Urban Vinyl Daily Toys booth. And the one thing I want to point out about these custom shows and events, and that's why I think the Shard Show did it so great, is when customizers are doing these things, you want your stuff to be displayed in the best way possible. You didn't want it just sitting on the edge of someone's table, not being seen. You want it to look professionally displayed. And the other thing that I noticed, like these conventions where people are inviting artists to do these events, they're almost seeing themselves as a gallery. They're representing the artist, and they're taking nice cuts, 50% cuts or 60/40s or what have you. And I feel like when you're getting that percentage with a gallery, that's because they have huge rental space. They have air conditioning. They're doing lots of marketing up front. Your stuff is on display all month long before your piece is then packed up and shipped to the owner. And so when you go to these custom shows, George, you just mentioned it at the Jurassic Park booth, whoever bought those pieces from Chris and Amanda, they got to take them instantly, and no one else at the convention got to see them. And I'm sure that gallery probably still had a percentage of a 60/40 or a 50/50 split. For me, that doesn't make sense. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
I don't know why people would do a custom show at a convention. That doesn't make sense to me. I guess if you set it up like you were saying with the pillars and all that stuff, like maybe that works. But like if you just have like a 10x10 booth and you're going to put a custom show on, like that seems weird.
I think it would be really tough to do at a convention because there's just so much competing stuff and you're trying to sell spendy items. But, if you have the space to do it, go for it. It's usually weird to see a custom show being at a standard 10x10 booth and then they're also selling the original art and stuff as well. Sometimes it's cramped. But I have seen nice shows that do it well. Kyle Trawan's Vagabond show at last year's DesignerCon was held in the lobby. Plenty of space to walk around and see things. And that cut was good. I think you just paid for the resin figure and the shipping and then the artist got the rest of the money. So, and also 1,000 Toys does a really nice event. So, there's people that have the space and do custom presentations really nicely.
Well, and also, you mentioned a lot of names. Like, I didn't even know those were all going on. Like, shouldn't there be something, like, in the DesignerCon book where you're, like, maybe they should have, like, a section for art shows like that? Like, maybe
that is an amazing idea. All custom shows in one area against the back wall where there's nothing going on. In the dead zone. No, that's a great idea. I love that idea.
Well, and promoting it better. I agree with that. I think in general, so much stuff is last minute. If they can kind of finalize, like the panels, and we can get panels later, but like panels and signings and shows and everything, if you don't follow the right people or know the right accounts, you may not even know they're going on. So I don't know how they can get better about organizing that, but I think it would be helpful. But I do think the presentation of this is important. And I think the other thing the Shard Show did well is the labeling. Like you could clearly see the artist's name and the prices and all of that. Yeah, just presentation in general I think is important so that it's not, I don't know, it needs to be treated as much like a gallery as you can.
Especially for those percentages they're taking. I mean, artists are not making very much money on these customs. So at least represent them in the absolute best way you can.
I agree.
Like if someone buys it, say, hey, could you come pick this up the last 2 hours of the show on Sunday and we'll have it ready for you. At least let the other attendees be able to experience the beautiful artwork that the artists have done.
Yeah, I agree. And I know it might be hard because someone may have bought it.
Ship it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lucas, do you like toys?
Yeah.
So do I. And my office has tons of toys in it, doesn't it? And do you know where I get those toys?
from your friends and stores, and you make them.
True, but I also get some from our sponsors. And do you know who our sponsors are?
Strange Cat Toys and 3D Retro.
That's right. And if you go to Strange Cat Toys, be sure to load up that cart and use our promo code Marsham at checkout, and you'll receive 10% off your entire order. And so, Lucas, what is Daddy always looking at when he looks at his phone?
Toys.
And where do I see all these great toys?
Social media.
That's right. For all the latest and greatest designer toy news, be sure to like and follow
SpankySpoke.com.
Close. Try it one more time.
SpankyStokes.com.
Perfect. And who else?
And the Toy Chronicle.com.
And be sure to download the Toy Chronicles app at any one of your favorite app stores. Thanks, Lucas. Actually, come here. Rowan, I want to get you in here. Rowan's my 4-year-old. So, Rowan, come here. How about? Repeat after me. Please support our sponsors. So that my dad can buy us more toys. Good job.
Can we go swing back to the panel real quick?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't. What was going on with the panel? I didn't see any news about the panel, so I really had no idea what was going on. I know they mentioned them over the intercoms, but that to me was like someone talking through a drive-through fast food speaker. I just could not make out what they were saying. So
you want to know where you could really hear the intercom really well? Actually, the overhead speaker really well. While you were trying to do a panel. That's where you could really understand everything they would say over the loudspeaker, which was completely destroying the panel.
Huh.
Wow.
Terrible.
Well, so what panels did they end up doing? Because I think before the event, we thought that maybe it was something with Netflix series, and then I never really heard much else about it, so I didn't even know what was going on and which ones were being even being held. And you were in one, George. So what? Do you know what was up?
I know 3. I know the one that was before me, ours, and the one that was after us. And I don't know who was running the panels. I don't know what was going on with the panels. It was a nightmare over there. No one knew how to control the audio. I had to call our friend Brandon in from the Lego booth to come over and see if he can make the audio work. And the panel after us, there were no nameplates made. So the people on the table, I don't know who made our nameplates for our thing, but we had them. But there was none for the people after us at their panel. There was no water provided for the people on the panel. So they were just sitting there someone had asked me, is there anybody that can get water for this? Because one of the people had a sore throat from already, yelling at their booth the whole time. And it was just, I don't know who was in charge. I don't know. There was no one running the thing. So I have no idea what was going on. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how I guess people just went over when they thought that their time was the right time and started talking. I mean, we were supposed to be there at noon, so our group of people went over there at noon, and when the panel before us ended, we all just picked up mics and sat down and did it, but there was no one directing or no one telling anyone where to go, or it was very odd.
The panels never seem to work. Maybe they just aren't needed. Let's just stop doing them.
I don't know why they do them. I honestly don't. And the only reason we even had a panel, the one that I was on, was Titmouse a week ago canceled. They just said, no, we're not going to do it after agreeing to do it. So we had time to fill. So we kind of came up with we did an enamel pin panel, and it went well. We had people sitting there watching. There were just people in the audience. They were asking questions at the right time, and the audience was they were receptive to it. I just don't understand who was running the panels. I don't know what. There was no one. It was just they just kind of happened. I think it was very odd.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Gary. I just don't even know. They always seem so disorganized. And the one year, maybe it was the first 5 Points or the first DCon I went to. I can't remember which one, but I remember I tried to go to the panels and they just weren't for me. Not very many people attended. It was kind of hard to know where they were or what they were when they were gonna be. I don't know.
I feel like the people that are going don't even know what the is. They just see some chairs over there and looking to take a rest, and that's who you're talking to. People who are really just kind of sitting and resting.
Yeah,
not talking to
you. You could definitely tell that from up, from up on the stage. The people in the back are resting there. The people in the first 6 or 7 rows, they're the ones that are listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't lie. I remember one of the panels, I was like, oh, I'll eat my lunch in there.
Well, the funny thing is they put the VR booths right next to the panels and like the DJs there and stuff. So it was like you're trying to do a panel and all of a sudden this booth is blaring music. And you're like, what? And they're like the speakers are like facing the panel and you're like, what's happening? why are we fighting this? Like what placement is this?
Yeah.
So here's what I'm hearing, guys. Get rid of panels. That's a huge area in the back corner. We could fit more booths back there, and we can get this thing down to one hall. I think we could do it. But let's switch from this and let's talk about VIP night, the 4 hours on Friday. I want to know what you guys thought about it. How you saw it. Did you enjoy it? Do you think it's necessary? Because VIP badge holders also got 1 hour early entrance both Saturday and Sunday. So do we need a VIP night and early entrance on both weekend days? So I'm curious, what did you guys think about the VIP experience overall?
I feel like they need to choose. The fact that they did a VIP night and opened early on both days, an hour early for a VIP, seemed like overkill. And I feel especially bad for the vendors because those were some long days and some early mornings. And so I don't know, the preview night was weird for me. I remember walking in, I didn't know what to expect because in my brain, I'm picturing frenzy. Just as a collector, I'm like, it's going to be crazy. People are going to be running around. It's going to look crazy in here. But it was very chill, for me at least. And granted, again, like I said, I was a little more chill myself, I guess, as far as my purchasing went. So I wasn't super stressed, but it was much more chill and calm and kind of quiet. And it just kind of surprised me. But, so yeah, I didn't mind it, but I'm kind of with you. I feel like they do the preview night. Do they really need the early hours, or do they even need the preview night? Just give them an early hour on the Saturday and call it a day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this since I've gotten back. And initially, I didn't know that I thought the VIP night was worth it. But after thinking about it, realizing it was a great night for the VIPs and the attendees and vendors even to go in and get a sense of the lay of the land before the craziness happens on Saturday and Sunday. And it's also nice for the VIP holders to be able to line up at a reasonable point of the day. They can line up at maybe noon or 1 p.m. versus when it would open just on a Saturday, they would wake up at 2 in the morning or 6 in the morning or wherever to get there super early. So that was nice to be able to go there and just kind of figure things out. And I think that really helped de-stress a lot of people going into the chaos of the weekend. But also, the bad thing is I think really the VIP night only benefited maybe 50 of the 700 vendors. The VIP holders, badge holders know exactly what they're looking for. They're knowing exactly what booths they're going to run to. And it's not every booth. Most of the booths look pretty slow and probably didn't do great sales on VIP night. So in that regard, I kind of feel bad for some of the vendors because they're having to spend an extra night hotel stay that they probably wouldn't want to. But for the popular vendors, it was excellent for them. I know a lot of them that did so well on VIP night. They had that tough decision of having to make the call of do they withhold stock to try to reserve some stuff to have for sale on Saturday and Sunday, or do they just potentially sell out of everything on VIP night? So, yeah, it was a tough call.
Yeah, I think that was the trickiest part is, trying to figure out what's fair. Because VIP obviously paid more and are coming in first, and so technically they have the right to get first dibs at everything. But I think as artists and knowing you have other fans, you're trying to be fair and thinking about the general admission too. And so that VIP night did make things really tricky. And I know people were trying to decide, should they set a cap? Should they truly make it just a preview and not sell anything at all? And it seemed like it was really bugging. Like it was really a concern and it's a stressful point for them, right? Like it's not like they wanted to limit sales or not limit sales. They wanted to make it fair. So it's very, very stressful, them trying to figure out the right thing to do. And if they got rid of VIP night, that would pretty much just take away that issue altogether.
What do you think, George?
I think as a vendor, I kind of agree. Like the sales on VIP night are really just the sales you would normally get Saturday morning.
Right.
But I did fine VIP night. So like I was actually not expecting to do anything. I was expecting, because I'm not a booth that has hype things. There's no need to run to my booth. I'm not going to sell out because I purposely don't bring everything because I know that there are people that can't get to the show. So I'm not going to be the guy that sells out on VIP night. But I still did decent. I do think the hour the next morning and really the hour on Sunday morning, it's like it becomes like, okay, we don't need this.
Right.
We don't need this much VIP.
Get rid of it.
I agree.
I don't know. Like it just seemed like it was a little bit overkill of hours. But there were booths like right next to us is Reelhead. They are, they come in from Japan and they have a pretty big following that always. Their booth is one of those ones that's the one that people run to. And they were having the problem of people would, before the VIP hour even started, it was a line of vendors.
Yeah.
And people with vendor badges. Yeah. So what they did was you can't line up before the VIP time. And at the VIP time, you can go ahead and line up. But they don't actually start selling anything until it's open to the public. So you can wait for an hour in line if you really want their thing, or you could just come back and line up at the right time.
Okay, I get that.
Interesting.
It kind of is the fairest way to probably do it, knowing that there's people that have been waiting in line for 6 to 8 hours outside for your stuff. Don't sell everything to the vendors at first.
That's the tricky thing. Like some people know that, vendors are there and want stuff too, and imagine like having stuff people will line up at your booth and you're already stressing enough whether you should even sell, and then you have that extra layer of like, hey, look, like I want to sell to the collectors. Do I sell to the vendors? Do I not sell to the vendors? It just gets really tricky.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like vendors are collectors too, so you can't just say no, I can't sell to vendors.
Right. That's what's hard. Yeah.
Right. So we all agree that the extra hour for VIP early opening on Sunday is not necessary, because Saturday night there's the after party. There's a lot of people staying out late, going off and doing other things. So it'd be nice for the vendors to have maybe that extra hour needed to sleep in. But so George, you and Jess went to the after party and we did not. So how was it? What'd you think?
All right. So we go to the after party. The best part of the after party before we even get in is we walk up and it's Ben manning the table for like handing out the tickets to get in,
which is awesome. The head honcho doing the sales. That's pretty cool.
Doing the sales, and he's sitting behind the table with a hookah, like a little personal hookah there, and he's just smoking hookah at the table behind the thing. It was so great. All right, so nice. What do you want to say?
Okay, so we all talked about how big this convention is. So by the end of the night, my little puppies were hurting. And George and Dr. A decided we're going to walk 2 miles to go get vegan pizza and back before this party even starts. So by the time we get back, I'm like, I don't want to go to this party. This sucks. So then we go in, and it's just kind of a weird vibe, right? Like it wasn't, there was no like real DJ playing. I got a drink, and then once the band started, they kicked everybody that was in the hallway into the arena area. Like you couldn't hang out in the hallways and talk to your friends. Like they made you go into the concert area.
So like the hallway was where the beer was sold. Like the beer and the merch table were in the hallway, but you weren't allowed to be there. They would like kick you out of the hallway as soon as you had your beer, get back in the venue. And you weren't allowed to stay there and talk. I don't know. It was maybe concert venue rules or something, but the security were dicks. And they were just like, everybody get out of the hallway. Get out of the hallway. Back in the venue.
Which was probably loud and dark and hard to talk.
Yeah, you can't talk at all in there because it's a rock concert. It's literally a rock concert. So it was like we were trying to hang out in the hallway and chat and have a good time, and they kick you back out of there into the venue.
Yeah.
Was it attended well?
It was more than I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't what it should be for a rock concert.
Yeah.
Like, if you were there to see that band, you had a great time because you were super, like...
But that's the thing. The band, like, you're like, oh, we're going to go see this, like, Foo Fighter, like, crew band. And they played songs I've never heard of in my entire life. They're like, this one's AC/DC. I was like, well, from when? Like, when they were just beginning?
like B-side tracks that no one's ever heard of, except for hardcore fans.
And like, I think the only song they played that anyone knew was Devil Went Down to Georgia. Yeah, Devil Went Down to Georgia.
To be fair, we left after 4 songs because we were just like, we don't know these songs and we have to get out of here. This is awful.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was just a bummer. And then like we missed the secret walls, but I heard that the DJ didn't even show up for that. The walls weren't even lit up, so you didn't even know that they were there. Versus like last year's party was really fun. There was a lot of walls, there was a lot of art going on. And this year it was just 2 walls and you barely saw them. Like they weren't lit up at all. It was just kind of a weird, like I saw a lot of people like leaving but there was a good amount of people by the stage.
Yeah, like up in the front by the stage, it was a packed little crowd.
Okay.
But I mean, it was like.
But after a song ended, nobody cheered.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, they weren't playing. If you're gonna do cover band, like you gotta play the hits, man. But maybe they did later on, like as it got later. But like the stuff we saw was like. And it was all, they were playing, like she said, AC/DC, they played ZZ Top, they played Black Sabbath, like all these bands that you should know songs from, and it was like deep cuts. Kiss, dude, Kiss songs you've never even heard, like deep cuts.
Deep cuts. Like they had to explain the song that they played from Kiss. That it wasn't really a Kiss song.
It was like an Ace Frehley song on a Kiss-related release. Like. Yeah,
they had to explain it. If you have to explain where the song came from, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, that was not good.
Well, Jess, while you're here, I want to thank you for suggesting going to Orange and getting out of that touristy Anaheim area, because that's what we did. The first night we went to downtown Disney, ate at Julio Joe's, and got some... And then on Friday night, the VIP night, we went to Blaze Pizza, just around the corner. A lot of people from our community happened to be there that night too, so that was fun. And then the previous 2 nights, we checked out Orange, and it was awesome. I love that little town. Very cool. Great suggestion.
He said you wanted mom and pop. I gave you mom and pop.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, driving through, actually Horrible Adorables invited us out to join them and a couple friends out for dinner out there. And just driving through that little area kind of reminded me something out of like Back to the Future. Like the Hill Valley scene. I almost expected to see a clock tower across the street from that little round that you go through. It was a very cool area. We went to a really nice, not a nice restaurant, but a great tasting restaurant. Very small, very quaint. So I don't want to announce it on the podcast because I want it to be our own little secret, spot for next year.
Hey, you can promote it. That's my old roommate's place.
I know, but George, there's like 4 tables in this place, and I'm afraid that
it's a chain out here. It's popular.
Oh, fine. It's the pie hole, and they make pot pies and dessert. That was awesome. We hung out there, and then from there we walked down the street and kind of did a little bar hopping in different bars, and it's really, really cool. So we went there 2 nights in a row, and that's where I'm going to be going every time I go there again. Yeah, forget that Anaheim touristy area. Get an Uber and go to that little Orange area. Lots of restaurants, lots of cool bars, and just a really cool area to walk around at night. The only downside is things tend to close pretty early. Yeah. So most of the restaurants close at like 9, and then we would go find another bar that was stayed open later. But that's a really cool area. Thanks for suggesting that.
You're welcome. I'm sure Kyle Kerwin is out there cringing.
Yeah, you told me that's where he grew up, so I talked to him about that. But I did what Gary said. Orange was great. It's a great little place if you have the ability to Uber or drive over there and you need a break from the chainy touristy haven that is Anaheim, it's totally worth it.
While I'm on here, can we talk about how I waved at Teresa twice and she ignored me both times?
Whoa, cold shoulder, Teresa. What's going on there?
Oh.
She had like some little groupies around, and I was like, "Oh, Teresa." Okay,
Here's the thing, Jess. What Gary's realized by now, and what you'll soon realize, is that when I go to these events, now that I've gotten to know more people and it's like my home and my comfort, I can very easily get distracted. And I'll be like trying to go somewhere and then I bump into someone and suddenly we've been talking for 15 minutes and like I'm in the zone talking to them. I forget what I was even trying to do. So I was totally like, I had no idea you were trying to wave to me. I was just probably chatting it up.
I think it looked like you had like 5 little girls around you, and I was just like, this is like, it looked like they were like, little groupies. I was like, oh, that's so cute. I don't know who any of them were, but I was like,
maybe.
Damn.
Maybe it was the Critter Crew or the Chris Raniak fanatics like me. We had a little hangout sesh, so it could have been that. I
have to say, Jess, I've done 3 conventions now with Teresa. I'm done walking around with her. It's impossible. Like, she's like just so distracted, so ADD, and then she's constantly talking at booths. Like, she has no voice, but she can't help but like talk to everybody. And
you mean
I don't know. It's really hard to walk around with you, Teresa. And then she'd be like, "Oh, Gary, I'm just gonna stay here and talk for a couple more minutes. Meet me at this booth. I'll be there, and I'll wait there for like 20, 30 minutes. No show. So I'm done.
Sorry.
I'm done hanging out. I am done hanging out with you, Teresa. I will catch up with you after the event."
Meh.
Go find your own Critter Crew, Gary.
I should. You know what? I just operate better alone, I think.
Yeah, we split up. Someday we did our own.
Yeah,
thing.
we did. We split up on.
By
the way, I would like to say that my roommate, Sad Salesman, best roommate ever. He's my Del Griffith. Actually, I was probably more Del Griffith for him. Anyone who hasn't seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I was his Del Griffith. Have you guys ever seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
That's the weirdest reference.
What?
It's the weirdest reference. Like,
no, that's one of the best Thanksgiving movies of all time. Everyone's seen it, George. Everyone knows John Candy's character.
No idea.
Of course, Teresa,
about.
Forget about it. I know you don't watch anything. You don't know any movie we've ever told you about. Plane, Trains, and Automobiles, Steve Martin, John Candy, one of the best movies of all time.
Great travel movie.
Great travel movie. They were roommates, and there's a scene in that movie where Steve Martin's kind of nice and lets John Candy take a shower first. And so John Candy gets out of the bathroom and Steve Martin goes in and every towel is soaking wet. And it's just, you just see Steve Martin's face pick up even like the smallest little hand towel and his face is in horror of how drenched everything is. So I have a quick story to tell you guys. So anytime I go to a hotel room, you got that new shower scenario. You don't know how to turn it on. You don't know what turn. And these showers and these ones had the main overhead nozzle and then like a wand. And there's 2 different handles. You're trying to figure out what turns on what, how to get hot, how to get cold. So I finally figured it out. And every single day I took a shower in this place, there was a river of water outside of the shower. And somehow when Eric took a shower, perfectly fine. I don't know what magic he was performing because I made sure the door was shut.
Inside the shower, I heard that.
No, I don't know. The door was shut. The door was sealed. I'm in there naked inspecting. I don't know where the water's getting through, but there's a puddle of water on the floor. So this is the funny thing. Saturday morning, maybe it was Friday morning. I take the showers in the morning. Eric took them at night, so I took a shower in the morning, and it was covered in water. So I start taking the big body towels, putting them on the floor, but they are absolutely drenched. And Sad Salesman, Eric, he's getting ready. He needs to get to the convention center. We need to go downstairs and get to breakfast. So he puts on a brand new pair of socks, and I'm sitting on the bed, and all I hear, he goes in the bathroom, and I hear squish, squish. And his socks, his brand new socks are soaked. And he comes out of the bathroom, and if you know Eric, you know this facial expression. He kind of does this like head tilt with a smirk. He's like, Gary, and he takes off his socks, and he basically had to wring them out and go put on a new pair. I was dying. That is the best moment of the whole trip for me.
Oh, man.
What a dick.
Glad you said it. That's what I was thinking.
Oh, no. That's why I'm the Del Griffin.
Yourself.
I tried.
Oh, man.
I tried.
Well, we're giving a roomie shout out. So I actually ended up rooming with a stranger, no longer a stranger anymore, but we had talked about how trying to save on costs and get roommates and all that. And someone had actually reached out to me about rooming at DCon. And I was like, all right, let's give this a try. So I want to give a shout out to my roomie, Elizabeth. She's the Naughty Rabbit on Instagram, but we had a great time. So I'm super happy she reached out, and she ended up kind of joining us to hang out, and we had some adventures together. It worked out. So
yeah,
I think that's probably the only listener that I met at the show was her. She came by the booth. She was quite nice. I think she was from New York, right?
Yes, Syracuse.
I met a lot of your guys' listeners. Like,
yes, I've heard, Jess, they recognized your voice.
Yeah, that was really weird for me because usually this is like George's thing, and I'm George's wife, and nobody cares about me. And then he would like disappear, and like I'd be selling something, and people would be like, I do really know your voice from somewhere. I don't know. Like, are you on Marsham? And I'm like, this is weird. Like, George is on Marsham, and I just yell shit from the back. So.
You're our secret hidden host. No, I feel like a lot of people stopped me. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I just want to say thank you to all the listeners to stop me to say hi, and who were super nice about the podcast and giving us kudos and all that great stuff. It made me feel really, really good. So thank you for all of the podcast love. I was just kidding.
I did meet a bunch of listeners. I was only kidding about not meeting. I do remember you all.
One of the weird things I find kind of walking around the convention center is by doing this podcast, people hear us every week, and they kind of get to know us in some sort of regard. So it feels like a lot of people feel like they know us more than we know them, and they'll approach us at the conventions and know a lot about us and know our stories and stuff like that. And it's kind of weird. It's interesting, but it's also weird at the same time that they know us actually pretty well. And I also feel bad where people might see us coming down the rows and like, oh, here comes Gary or Teresa or George, and they're going to stop and look at our stuff, but we're in just a kind of like a con stupor, and we just blow by them, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I'm kind of aware of that stuff.
Yeah, I can see that concern. Like, I always feel bad because if someone thinks I'm gonna talk to them, or if I miss them at the show, like I barely saw anybody. I barely went to any booths. Like, I barely got to see stuff. So, and I'm always awesome because I kind of. I mean, even when we posted that picture of us, and there was the one comment from Rika who was like, "Oh, look, there's the guy who doesn't like any of my shit." I was like, oh, man. Yeah. It's not. I got 2 pieces of Rika's hanging in here right now. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
that was a good comment.
It kills me that I can't buy from everyone. The more people you know in the scene, it's almost like a slight bit of guilt, right? Because like I'll walk up to these booths of art I love, but it's like, like I've bought from you before. I kind of want to buy from someone else. It hurts. It sucks, but it's like, I'm trying to be good here. I've got a sea of toys around me, at this point.
Except for Chris Rainiac. You're like, take all my money.
Well,
she actually did take some of his money because she went and did some of his shopping for him.
No, she didn't.
She did.
Chris knows I have a special place in my heart for him and Amanda.
To be fair, Teresa would have done it for several vendors because she knows they can't get away from their booth and get their one. So she would help out a lot of people.
I love all people. I love everyone out there, even if I didn't stop and say hi or I had to rush past or any of that.
You said Teresa, that your roommate was the Naughty Rabbit, Elizabeth. Is that right?
Yes.
She's got good art.
She does. So she's actually been trying to vendor. She vendored once at 5 Points and has been trying to get into DCon. And she actually came this year as kind of a dual purpose. One, to kind of explore and shop and learn the scene, but also from a vendor perspective, just to get a feel for how the vendoring works and get some vendor tips. So yeah, she does some really cool sculpts.
Totally be a vendor here. This stuff's cool.
Yeah, she's great. So shout out to you, Elizabeth. You're awesome.
Yeah, she's a really good artist. Holy cow, look at that.
Yeah, no, she's good. But guys, we're at an hour 35, almost hour 35, so we should probably start wrapping up the show. I guess to recap it or abridge kind of what we've talked about, I know we probably came across sounding kind of negative on the show, but that's not the case. We all had a great time. It was an excellent event. So congratulations to Ben and his team for handling the move well. I know that couldn't have been easy and it was stressful on them, but we did take a large sampling of vendor comments and attendee comments, and we were just kind of expressing them here on the show. But overall, excellent event. I mean, it's definitely changing. We all know that. It's growing, and it's maybe become a little more commercial. It's not just designer toys anymore. It's designer toys and more. And I think this year a lot of us noticed more of the more than anything. But, I look forward to next year. I think this year was a growing pain scenario, and they're going to learn from it and take our feedback. And I expect next year to be even better. So looking forward to seeing everyone there next year.
I agree. I mean, the big thing for me always, at this point at least, is the people. And I feel bad for the vendors that it's changing a bit and maybe not as easy to hang out. But for me, as someone who's walking around, that's my favorite part, getting to see everyone that I don't get to see all the time. So I didn't lose that at all. And so that I was happy with it because of that.
Right. And that's actually, honestly, that's one reason I stopped exhibiting at these shows, because I enjoy spending time with my friends more than anything else. Sometimes when you exhibit, you're stuck behind a booth and you don't always get to get away and talk to the people and hang out with the people you want. And so, yeah, I don't have many in-town friends. I have coworkers and I have family, and I hang out with my family majority of the time. And when these shows come around, that's my time to go out and hang out with my toy family, all my online friends. And I have a great time when I'm doing it. And it's awesome that I can go there and still be able to pick up those much-wanted toys and get in that much-needed friend time.
I agree. And it just makes me all that more excited for 5 points. I'm ready to do it again. Let's all gather and hang out and talk
Bring
toys.
it on.
Take George.
Bring it on.
Huh?
Take George with you.
Yeah, come to 5
let's
points,
go.
George.
Yeah, let's go, George.
Thing is coming out.
And I gotta say, biggest complaint is I know it's probably cheap, it's probably a cost savings thing, but we gotta get DesignerCon off the weekend before Thanksgiving. It's a horrible week for travel, and even for doing this podcast, it's just like your con high is gone so fast because you're already switching modes for Thanksgiving. It's just, I want it off this weekend already. I hate it.
I agree. And I saw that the new dates for next year is going to be the same thing as the weekend before Thanksgiving again. And it sucks. I mean, because you go from, oh, yes, awesome, but then you're stressing. For me, it's just, I was stressing about having a clean house and getting back and getting ready for family. And it's you don't even get to enjoy the bliss of toys and friends and it's just straight into the next. So I agree. It'd be great if they could shift things around a bit and not make it so close to the Thanksgiving holiday.
Totally agree.
But
okay, well, that's a good chat.
Yeah. So real quick, memorable moments. I have to say, you were saying your most memorable moment was this whole bathroom incident, Gary. But for me, so because Eric was your roommate and Elizabeth and mine, we all kind of hung out a lot. And one of the nights that we went to Orange, you drove Eric and I back into Anaheim. And for some reason, Eric, out of the blue, started singing, "Do you want to build a snowman?" I was like, why are you singing Frozen?
I remember.
But he came out of the blue, started singing it, and I was like, screw this, I'm into this. So literally, Eric and I start having a sing-along of all these Frozen songs. It was probably the most fun I've ever had, just because it came completely out of the blue. But the best part was that you, Gary, didn't know Frozen at all. I can't believe
I've never seen it.
The movie.
No. Of course, I know the songs. I know "Let It Go" and all that, but I've never actually sat down and watched the movie. And you guys were singing songs I don't know the lines to, but it was cool. I was just sitting there driving. You guys were doing carpool karaoke back there, so that was fun.
It was one of those moments where, Eric as an artist, you kind of know him, and he's kind of a chill, casual guy. To have him start singing Frozen songs with me it was just the best thing ever, and I had an absolute blast. So thank you, Eric, for singing Frozen with me.
So many good Eric moments. I wish we had time to tell them all, and it's just you and I. We could just reminisce about it later, but. There was another night on Sunday night, we skipped lunch and we ended up going to dinner really late, and you were super hangry. But then Horrible Adorables walks into the pub carrying something in their arms covered by a jacket. What was that?
Oh, yeah. So I was very hangry, and I apologize, everyone. who was attending. I was super hungry. But yeah, they walk in the door and they had a super plastic janky case. And they walk in and put it on the table, and I'm like, wait, what? Did yours already ship? And I'm like, wait a minute, they haven't shipped yet. I was like, did you get put in the series? Like they knocked 2 artists out? Are you one of the secret artists that got added in and like got a artist proof case or something? Like thinking all this stuff, and they're just sitting there like not saying anything, and they open the case, start handing out the boxes.
And they're empty.
They're empty. It was like some kind of proof box that they had found when they were doing vendor cleanup that someone had like sat by a trash can. So I don't know whose janky box that was, but we got a hold of it, and they fooled me. They punked me so hard. I was like, what's this? I get to see them? Oh my gosh. And then I was like, oh, it's just a stupid box.
Just a dumb empty box. It wasn't even just, it was an empty box. It was just a display case of nothing. Even on top of all the boxes, it said blank. So I don't think there ever was any toys in any of those boxes. So, but good on Horrible Adorables for digging that out of the pile of trash there and bringing it and punking us. They got us good. So, George, Jess, you got any memorable or favorite moments?
Oh, I have a fun story. Our hotel room gave us 2 separate beds, and we loved it.
You all didn't sleep in the same bed?
No, not at the background.
That's
Oh my
awesome.
gosh, that's
I would
awesome.
like both.
All right, guys. Well, that was fun. So there you go. There is our DesignerCon wrap-up. The end.
The end.
Why didn't you guys each take a brief moment and let people know where they can find you? Teresa, go first.
Sure, if you want to find me, check me out on Instagram. My username is tmhawk24.
George.
I am at Double G Toys on Instagram, and you can check out my store envy at doublegtoys.storeenvy.com. And I just put up new stuff from the convention, so go check it out.
Nice. Jess, I know you want to keep things private, but I want to say I'm glad that you and I are on slightly better terms now.
I know. I gave you the stink eye accidentally, I think, at least twice, but...
You can't hate me. You can't. It's impossible.
You know what it is? I think it's because you remind me of Greg so much. It's like if I hate you, I hate Greg, and I can't do that to Greg.
You can't do that to Greg. I get it.
Special going on, and I can't.
I get it.
When I look at you, I see him.
Man. All right, so I'll go next. I am Gary Ham. You can find me at Gary Ham on Instagram or superham.com. This has been the Marsham Toy Hour. We do this every week. Not because we have to.
Because we want to.
Because we have to.
And actually, we're gonna be going on winter break. We might do one more episode, but for most of December, we're gonna be silent, and we will come back in season 4 in January. So, until our next transmission, we're signing off. Bye.
Bye.